If you're a little younger, you probably won't remember a time before the UFC. While it's the undisputed home of mixed martial arts today, its early marketing made it an easy target for politicians, and it was actually banned in over 30 states.
What it was at the beginning was human cockfighting. It was. I mean, I've seen people repeatedly getting smashed in the face with a guy sitting on top of them. That's not a sport.
He said, what are you doing? You can't go put on fights that aren't regulated by the Athletic Commission.
Marketed as a sport with no rules and no limits, critics argued that it was pulling in exactly the wrong crowd, which are people who just wanted to watch someone get hurt.
Start! And to my right, he's a freestyle wrestling champion and a World Cup champion. He is the winner of UFC.
But when the Fertitta brothers and Dana White took over under the Zuffa banner, everything changed. The once bankrupt company was eventually sold for $4.2 billion in July 2016 and has only grown since. Now part of the TKO organization on the New York Stock Exchange and fresh off a $7.7 billion deal with Paramount Plus, business has never been better. Yet, even though it's come a long way and is now an accepted and even celebrated part of the sports landscape, critics persist not just because of what takes place in the cage, but the business dealings that surround its biggest organization. In fact, there are so many fighters who will warn you not to get involved because the risks don't outweigh the rewards.
The only issue with martial arts though, dude, and this is what I tell people, and if you got a kid who's trained, and let's just say you're training, and I tell them this, when I was a kid, I was like 14, training at a gym, and there was a guy named Zach Light. This guy's like a hero to me. I'm watching him teach cardio kickboxing, I'm watching him teach like jiu-jitsu, and like he'll spar and fuck me up. I'm like, oh man, this guy's so fucking cool. He's the life that I want. And then hindsight, he's teaching cardio kickboxing classes for 20 bucks a class. So it's like, whenever you look at UFC fighters and you want to be this, understand, most of us end up poor, broke, and regretting our life choices. It's easier ways to make money, guys.
Because even if you were once at the top of the game, there's no guarantee that you won't wind up even worse off than when you started pursuing your dream. It's your boy Luesta, live from Lu Extras, and this is the dark side of the UFC. Contested over 3 5-minute rounds, or 5 rounds for title fights, mixed martial arts is so synonymous with the letters UFC that some casual observers think that's the name of the actual sport itself, as do some meatheads who claim that they trained UFC. In the same vein, most of the industry's biggest box office attractions in history, like Conor McGregor, Jon Jones, Daniel Cormier, Anderson Silva, and Georges St. Pierre, all reached the height of their fame in this organization. Since the decline of Japan's Pride Fight Championship and its eventual sale to Zuffa in 2007, the UFC really hasn't had a proper competitor. While ONE FC and PFL certainly have their audiences, the UFC still controls a 90% market share. So while it's not quite a monopoly, it's fair to say that they run the game, hitting $1.5 billion in an operating income of $851 million in 2025. In this world, the UFC being the kings of the MMA world is essentially just accepted as a fact, but it turns out there is ultimately a menacing side to how they've held the reins so tightly. For one thing, they are led by a president in Dana White who's about as ruthless as they come.
My son Aiden, when she was pregnant with him, the due date was the Chuck Liddell fight.
Oh Lord.
And I said to the doctor, this ain't gonna work. This doesn't work for me.
Man, I don't know where this medical field medicine is at, but
So we scheduled a C-section to take him early.
oh really?
Yeah.
So was she gonna go natural?
No.
Okay, but there was a C-section. You're like, no, we gotta back this up. Like,
Yeah, was she gonna go natural what? Like go in when the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, when the baby's due, you.
Right.
Hey, the baby's due. Let's go.
But y'all did a
That was supposed to
scheduled
be
C-
Saturday on the fucking Chuck Liddell fight. that was the
no.
date that they pinpointed.
Right,
I'm
you're like, nah, this ain't gonna happen, Jack.
it's not gonna work for
Like,
me.
no, we're gonna be walking out in Vegas. Like, something gotta change. But you change? Okay.
Under this leadership, the sport has grown immensely, but while he and his partners have reaped the rewards, there are arguments to suggest that the people who really lost out are the fighters without whom they've had nothing to promote. But before it's time to delve into the real structural problems with the organization, let's first examine some of the dangers, which means that the UFC should be giving more of the revenue from these fight cards to the men and women putting it all on the line. Although getting repeatedly punched, kicked, or choked is inherently dangerous, one of the most life-threatening aspects of MMA isn't the fight itself, but the weight cutting process that fighters undergo beforehand to try and gain a size advantage. This often means that fighters will essentially dehydrate themselves to make a certain weight on the scale, often dropping upwards of 10 to 20 pounds in the run up to the fight. At times, this results to extreme consequences, where they can barely stand by the time they get to the scale.
Official weight, 170 pounds for Joaquin Buckley.
And in the recent case of Cameron Smotherman, literally pass out from the exertion and depletion of nutrients. There could be an entire video dedicated to weight cutting horror stories, but one of the most terrifying definitely comes from Liverpool-bred UFC fighter Darren Till, who pushed things so far to fight George Masvidal that he temporarily lost his sight.
I was making 77 kilos, like I was extreme weight cutting. It was like 40 kilos, 30 kilos cutting it, but then like the night before weigh-ins cutting like 10 kilos. To be honest, I was in the business of being the best weight cutter, and I did enjoy it, but my last weight cut to 170 was against Masvidal, and I remember going blind a few hours before weighing in.
And to no one's surprise, he also lost the fight. At times, fighters have tried to expose the horrors of what it really involves. In one video, Cris Cyborg, widely viewed as one of the toughest women ever to enter the octagon, was reduced to tears by the grueling process.
Oh, baby.
This is Chris Justino, known as Cyborg, just days before fights like this. It's not another fighter, though, who denies her that belt. It's her weight.
Calma, Chris, you need to breathe. You need to breathe. Yeah.
Cyborg, who weighs close to 175 pounds, normally fights at 145. But the UFC has said in the past that there aren't enough strong female contenders that size to have a 145 weight class.
As a result of the many harrowing tales that this has created, even some of those who are very much entrenched in the UFC want to see them prevent it from happening, while the fighters themselves see it as a necessary evil.
I really wish the UFC would eliminate weight cutting. I really wish there was a way.
Why they allowed to do that?
It's sanctioned cheating that everybody has to do. It's like if you're saying you're 180 pounds, you're not really 145, right? So it's crazy that you're the 145-pound champion, but you're a 180-pound man. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you go to the next weight class, you are playing with a disadvantage because the guy in the next division is cutting a lot of weight. So if you don't do that, at the end of the day, you walk inside the octagon and you are the smaller guy.
Alongside the stress that this process puts on the fighter's internal organs, all this rapid weight loss actually increases the risk of the other major problem facing the sport, and that is the traumatic brain injury. And when it comes to the UFC, this has proven to be a pretty big issue, resulting in lawsuits where fighters who have been left permanently injured try to make the money that they were denied at the time.
Don't you think UFC, that a lot of their fighters are going to end up with some kind of brain damage?
100%.
And that there's going to be some liability that comes out?
Well, I don't know if there's going to be some...
I'm just wondering if something like that is going to happen, because these guys don't use gloves.
Right,
they
right.
got the small ones.
Well, not only that, you're getting kicked. You're getting
kicked in the head,
Yeah, you're getting kicked, kneed, you're getting slammed on your head.
You see all the damage that's done in boxing.
Yes.
And I mean, MMA is probably worse.
It's part of the sport. And they know it coming in, and they now, I mean, there's no denying it. You're literally in the brain damage business.
I truly, honestly believe if it wasn't for the pills that I'm taking, my life would have been done a long time ago.
You think you may have?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you have?
I would have taken my life. Absolutely.
You would have killed yourself.
Absolutely. Mental disability is a huge thing. It's got me crippled.
The opponent he never saw coming, a disease that strangles his brain cells, causing memory loss, speech problems, and explosive behavior. In 2012, doctors diagnosed him with degenerative dementia, a type of CTE. It's caused by repeated blows to the head.
I've been fighting all day with people. Not fist fighting, just arguing.
We asked him to create a video diary for 1 month to show his daily life.
Today is a very tired day. I don't think I'm moving too far from my bed.
Filed in 2014 by veterans including Kung Lei, Nathan Query, John Fitch, Brandon Vera, Javier Vasquez, and Kyle Kingsbury, the antitrust lawsuit took aim at the UFC's stranglehold over the MMA market and the anti-competitive practices that kept fighter pay artificially low. And in pushing it forward, fighters began opening up about the life-altering damage their careers had done to them. Among them was heavyweight fighter Shane Carwin, once on the cusp of being a champion and renowned as one of the heaviest hitters there was. He revealed that his time in the octagon had done damage to his brain's prefrontal cortex and left hemisphere. And in the aftermath, he revealed that despite having a mechanical engineering degree and lengthy tenure in the industry, the damage done means that he can't hold a job. This basically meant that after being at the very top of the sport, he now couldn't support himself. As Shane's sad story came to light, former sparring partner Brendan Schaub, who many feel has suffered as a byproduct of his career in the sport, feels he can pinpoint how it happened. And to make matters worse, a story that he once told with bravado now clearly tears him up.
I remember I thought it was cool when they'd go 30 seconds left and the whole gym would turn and watch me and Shane Carwin plant our feet and just slug each other in the head. And we'd get done like high five. Then I'd get in my car and throw up. Jeez. And Shane would call me and go, dude, I forgot where I was going. What? And at the time we were like, God, see you tomorrow? See you tomorrow. Meathead power. You know? It's
Wow.
like, then we'd get in our cars and do it again the next day.
You can't even keep a job, dude.
It's that bad right now?
Yeah. He went from being an engineer.
But alongside Shane, few cases are as harrowing as Spencer Fisher.
How many times did you fight in the UFC?
Not sure. I've had a lot of fights. 17 times.
And Spencer, first off, congratulations on a very big victory for you. This is the first time in your career that you were stuck in a 2-fight losing streak. You really needed this win, right?
My back was against the wall for this fight, and I knew it was do or die for this situation, and I trained my butt off for this fight.
In an emotional interview, the UFC veteran and 3-time Fight of the Night winner revealed that he first confronted the consequences during a medical, and soon a CAT scan revealed the depth of the damage done.
I'm going for a physical, and they found lesions in my brain, and which led to further studies, and I found that I have dementia, depression, dizzy spells, calling people different names, not knowing their actual name. My kids, I've had instances in the past that I couldn't think of their name on the spot, and just my balance is shot. I have a hard time remembering what I did yesterday, and last week's a complete blur. My long-term memory is okay, but my short-term memory is gone. I got a supportive family that understands my conditions and tries to help me out the best they can. I don't want to die alone and not know anybody when I see them. I don't want to go out of this world not knowing people that I love, or not knowing new people. I have daughters that are going to be married one day and have a family of their own, and I want to be mentally around that I can talk to them.
Initially, he tried to manage his symptoms in silence out of his allegiance to the UFC, but he then realized no assistance was coming from the company that he gave everything to. Instead, he was discarded when there was nothing left to give.
Gave up on that hope years ago. I was hoping so. I always looked, when you're part of the UFC and you're doing well, you get phone calls and, you think you have a good relationship with certain people. And I kept thinking, the reason it took me so long to talk about this is because I kept telling people that they're going to help out, they're going to do something about this. They had my results of my testing, and I just thought that it would happen, and my wife told me, just don't expect that phone call or expect anything to happen because they got a business to run, they got other fighters, and you're just a guy from the past that, you do your part and then it's over.
Ultimately, this left fans saddened but not surprised. Spencer spent 7 years at the top of the sport of MMA. Guys like him were the show that built the UFC. Imagine being in the NBA for 7 years and coming out of it broke. Thanks for the memory, Spencer, and I hope you get the help and assistance you need. Man, You really hate to hear this, so sad. Unfortunately, there will be countless other fighters who will suffer with brain injuries after their careers have ended. These organizations need to do the right thing and help support these fighters because without them, they would be nothing. Much respect to you, Spencer. In the end, the antitrust lawsuit was successful, with UFC opting to pay a $375 million settlement for fighters active between 2010 and 2017. After they evaded taking that one to court, a second suit has now been filed for fighters from 2017 onwards, alleging that the UFC impairs the ability of would-be UFC competitors to attract a critical mass of top-level MMA fighters necessary to compete with the UFC at the top tier of the sport. Eric Kramer, leading attorney for fighters, said in a press release published by ESPN, "We intend to prove that the UFC engaged in a predatory scheme to undermine would-be competitors to the UFC, which the suit claims had the effect of maintaining and enhancing the UFC's dominance, and thereby impairing the careers and pay not just of the UFC's own fighters, but also of professional MMA fighters competing for MMA promotions across the MMA industry." And this is where we get into the real darkness at the heart of it all, where all the risks that the fighters take are undermined by the financial side of the sport, because frankly, it isn't quite adding up. In most sports, athletes normally receive anywhere between 47 to 50% of the sport's revenue, but the UFC has historically paid out between 16 to 19% of the revenues to its fighters. But it's safe to say that the UFC has been unrepentant about their figures.
You don't like the way we pay our fighters? Too fucking bad. Go start another MMA organization and you go fucking figure out how to do it, and you can pay them $10 million a fight, $30 million a fight, whatever you want to do. We run a business. We've been very good at it. Not only do we run the business, we continue to grow the sport and take everybody along with us, you know? You're either good enough to be here or you're not. This is the big leagues. It's like the NFL. You can either last here or you can't last here. But people get paid.
Over the years, the UFC has shut down every attempt by fighters to collectively organize for better contract, and in classic gaslighting fashion, they turned around and blamed the fighters themselves. In an ESPN Sports Nation fan chat, Dana once said on the matter, "I doubt it. The thing about fighting is not a team sport, it's an individual sport. It's gonna be tough to see a day with Silva and GSP giving up big chunks of their money to guys who won't make 2 fights in the UFC. Different sport, but if it happens, it happens. I have to negotiate with somebody on the fight contract. But the real problem, as critics have long argued, is that fighters are treated like employees in every way, except when it comes to the benefits. Because if they did, they would have to fund things like medical insurance and pensions, as well as sharing in the licensing and other revenue stream. Clearly, the UFC don't have any intention of changing that. As a result, Jake Paul is still campaigning for a union to happen to this day, a move that's made him oddly popular in circles that would usually despise him.
You know, I want to create a fighters union. You know, this is my goal, is to really impact the whole entire sport, both MMA and boxing, and leave an everlasting stamp. And I just so happen to not be beholden to anybody. A lot of these UFC fighters are beholden to Dana White. They can't speak out against him. So I'm using my platform because I'm one of the very few people who actually can. And I'll say whatever. I'll speak the truth. So I'm just doing what, you know, my responsibility is as a fighter and as someone who cares about other fighters.
But ultimately, the biggest problem is that the notion that they're contractors is built on a lie. Jeff Boris, who represented elite baseball players like Barry Bonds before founding the Professional Fighters Association, argued that the UFC's stance is that fighters are independent contractors. But if you analyze the situation, they're employees. The UFC tells them to fight, where to fight, and whom to fight. They tell them what they can wear, and also prevent them from fighting for other promotion. While it may seem like a throwaway comment to the uninitiated, telling them what to wear is an interesting wrinkle in that whole situation. Because back in the day, UFC fighters were allowed to have their own sponsors, often resulting in deals that could be more lucrative than their actual fight purse. But from 2015 onwards, the UFC put a stop to this, mandating that all of their athletes wear Reebok manufactured fight kits in a deal that benefited them rather than the athletes. And from the outset, it was a mess that not only robbed fighters out of hundreds of thousands in sponsors, but led to some really embarrassing moments.
So next one, the parade of problems for Reebok and UFC shit continues today. They debuted a UFC Ireland shirt in support, like in tandem with SBG, Conor McGregor's gym in Ireland, and they fucked up big time. They put a picture of the country of Ireland, but they left out
Northern
Ireland entirely.
Which to
is
them,
a separate.
Oh my God!
His coach had to tweet out like, "Hey, I have
You
nothing
don't have to
do
tell
with
me. You don't
this.
have to tell me.
Start a
That's
war."
dangerous.
Even worse.
That's
what they're
dangerous
saying.
for you.
Brian, even worse, the tagline on it was "Show your territorial allegiance." As if Northern Ireland and Ireland, the Republic, haven't been, accounted for thousands of
Reebok has
years.
to tweet out like, "Sorry, it's our design team." No.
Yeah.
Hey,
Fire your design team.
Details, you. Yeah, man.
Details!
Once that contract expired, French combat sports brand Venom took over. But while they were no longer in danger of things like kicking off the Troubles in Ireland all over again with a t-shirt, the same problems where fighters lost out on major cash remained the problem.
The UFC have got a structure in place now where Venom is the main sponsor of the UFC. In the past when I've been fighting, I've had massive offers of sponsorship, to go on shorts and in the cage, where I've had to turn it down. A construction company, they were actually in Dubai. They were a friend of a friend, and they were like, we want to pay till this much, and I was like, what? For this UFC, but we want to be on the shorts, we're making a big bang, and I was like, I had to turn the offer down. So that left a little bit of a bitterness in my mouth.
Are you able to say how much it was that they offered?
It's about 150,000.
Wow.
Aside from the limitations on their earning power, there is the issue that the contracts are extremely prohibitive in a way that wouldn't be if they were truly independent contractors. When welterweight legend and longtime champion Georges St-Pierre left the company in 2016, he did so with a deal that was suddenly under a lot of scrutiny. Upon analyzing the contract, a sports attorney named James Quinn, who is from a prominent New York law firm, suggested it would never fly anywhere else. I've done a lot of work in sports. When I read that contract, I was blown away by how restrictive it is. They're basically tying them up for life. They have no rights and they own all of the licensing and all the other things. It's unheard of in any other professional sport, and they won't get away with it forever. Quinn, an attorney who has successfully led cases against the NBA, NFL, and numerous other major entities in the past, compared the terms in St. Pierre's UFC contract to something out of the 1940s. He said he hasn't seen language that is restrictive in a sporting contract in 30 years, and that all past examples of similar deals have been found to be illegal once placed under the scrutiny of the law. He also cited the ongoing antitrust lawsuit currently being waged against the UFC by several former fighters. You couldn't get away with any old contract in any of the other sports, Quinn said. There is litigation in the aspect of a class action lawsuit that challenges the contract as being illegal under the NHS law. The case is ongoing, and I think that under the law's terms, I don't think the contract, that formal contract, is likely to stand up. Not in today's world. It's a pretty nice form of slavery. Despite all the many public controversies, Dana and the UFC still refuse to amend anything about their strategy, all while stacking more cash than ever.
I guess, and fighters always want to make more money. Boxing has absolutely been destroyed because of money and all the things that go on. It's never gonna happen while I'm here. Believe me, these guys get paid what they're supposed to get paid. They eat what they kill. They get a percentage of the pay-per-view buys, and the money is spread out amongst all the fighters. If you don't like it, there's a simple solution to this problem. Go start your own MMA organization, no barrier to entry, knock yourself out, pay them whatever you want to pay them. It's been done before. How's it worked out for other guys? Not well. Mind your business.
And shockingly, he does this all while claiming he has the utmost respect for athletes who are brave enough to venture into the octagon.
Well, I respect all you guys, man. Believe me, I say it all the time. I've said it publicly and I said it here. At one point in my life, I believed that I wanted to be a fucking professional fighter and a world champion. And someday you have to wake up and realize, and you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, you ain't it. You don't have it. You guys are different. There's no other people on earth like you. And you can be a world championship football player, world championship basketball player. It's not the same. Yeah, but you got a helmet. It's not the same. No, not even helmets. It's about who you are and how you're built.
But the counterpoint to that argument would be that if you really respected their contributions, you'd pay them fairly and enable them to actually live a comfortable life. Instead, hurdles keep emerging. Since 2026, the UFC now covers accommodation for the fighter and their head coach, no longer for the rest of the team, who now have to pay their own hotel. Due to the sheer path of the problem, former champions are now speaking out. In recent months, the likes of Rampage Jackson recalled how during his heyday with the company, they basically went out of their way to minimize his earnings when they hit a threshold that they deemed to be too much.
So let's see what he did with the UFC. He can do that for boxing, but Dana don't like to pay people what they worth.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a business standpoint, right? That's where I see it. But you said you made fucking like $7 million fighting Chuck Liddell.
Yeah, I didn't finish that. That was my pay-per-view. When they found out I made that type of money, I'm gonna say it. They changed my contract without me knowing.
But did you make $7 million?
No more after that.
But you made $7 million from fighting Liddell?
Yeah, because they brought my contract from another organization. They wasn't paying attention.
Similarly, former bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw reflected on how bad his contract was, even when he was at the height of his career.
I was on the Ultimate Fighter contract. I was fighting for a world title for $18,000. Right, I got to rip that contract.
What?
Yeah.
Your world title fight was $18,000.
Yeah, because you're on a 10-fight contract when you get on from the Ultimate Fighter, and you start off at 10-10. After 3 wins, you go to 14-14. After 3 wins, you go to 18-18. So Jesus. I was getting paid 18 to show, 18 to win against the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and I shocked the world. I went from like having like 10, 20,000 followers to hundreds, just changed my life. And like,
counted, yeah.
Ultimately, yes, I got in the sport to become a world champion, but also to feed my family and keep a roof over my head. Like, I didn't want to get a real job.
Perhaps most scathingly of all, Ronda Rousey spoke out about what some female champions have to resort to in order to subsidize the earnings that they should be making in the cage.
It's just not about putting on the best fights possible anymore. Dana isn't the owner, and he isn't calling the shots, and he isn't running things the way that he wants, because he's an employee of the company. It was a big mistake of theirs to not let him just run things the way that he always has. Oh, he knows the White House card sucks. Like, he knows that they were pushing this for over a year, and it fell extremely short of expectations. I mean, he was so upset about it. He was talking about a fight falling out the day before. You know, it's I can guarantee you he's not happy with it either. It used to be that UFC was the best place that you could come in combat sports to make a living and be paid fairly, and now it's no longer. It's one of the worst places to go. It's why so many of their top athletes are leaving to go and find pay elsewhere. It's why their champions like Valentina are selling pictures of their on OnlyFans. You know, like these people are, a lot of them at the ground level, they can't support their families. They're living poverty level fighting full time. This company just got $7.7 billion. There's no reason that they can't afford to pay their athletes at least a living wage.
I'm happy I'm out of that. That's all what I can say.
And as the UFC's profit margins continue to rise and fighter pay stays static, it's no surprise that even commentator and longtime friend of Dana White, Joe Rogan, felt the need to bring it up.
There's a weird, that sort of discussion about fighter pay. You know, I've always been of the opinion that fighters should be making more money, period. Because like the same way I feel about like the way I run my comedy club, the comedians make 80% of the money. Because I feel like that's who's you're paying to see. You're paying to see them. We make plenty of money, like with drinks and 20% of the ticket sale. It's like it's enough. Like it should be. If we had a comedy club and there's no comedians, no one's coming, right? No one's gonna pay just to sit there and buy drinks. Like the whole idea is they're paying to see someone's work. If you fight, that's what people are paying to see. They're paying to see fighters.
Without the fighters, there's no show. Without the comedians, there's no show. I understand. But I think the big thing with the discussion of fighter pay is the percentages. Yes. When you look at other major organizations like NFL, NBA, the percentages are so different.
As the situation for the UFC remains locked in place, the emergence of Dana White's new Zuffa boxing venture has only complicated matters. For a long time, boxers have made a lot more money than their competitors in the MMA, in no small part due to the fact that it isn't a monopoly and fighters have more room to negotiate for better terms. Due to a recent study, it was revealed that the median purse in 2019 was $2,000 for boxers versus $1,250 for MMA fighters, or $1,200 when weighted. While the money that those at the top of boxing made compared to UFC's biggest athletes is in an entirely different dimension of generational wealth. Considering that he started out as a boxing manager, Dana White has long since wanted to break into that sport. And now with the backing of TKO and Saudi Arabia's Turki Al Sheikh, He's trying to do just that through Zuffa Boxing, and shockingly, he's treating boxers way better than he does with the MMA fighters, recently signing a $15 million deal to side Conor Bren for one 10-round fight. Meanwhile, they're pushing to amend the Ali Act to create a version that allows for unified boxing organizations, in the fear that it's simply Dana's next move to monopolize the sport. And as the legendary Evander Holyfield noted, the loudest voices pushing for this rewrite aren't boxers, but the promoters of mixed martial art, the people who made business first, fighters last, a megasport. Immediately, competitors from the boxing world, such as promoter Eddie Hearn, warned that there was no space for someone who moves like Dana.
I represent the UFC heavyweight world champion. You know, you got Conor Ben making 15 million next week for 10 rounds. And then you've got a UFC fighter making less than $1 million, who's, like I said, filling the T-Mobile in Las Vegas. And the fighters now, they're not having it. So we know that Zuffa are in boxing, but this move by Zuffa in boxing has completely fucked them in the main part of their business, which is UFC. They've lost all control. Jake Paul's putting on the best MMA card of the year on Netflix. Everyone's saying to me, Eddie, you do MMA as well. I could walk into MMA and probably take it right to them now. But we're just going to chill out for a little bit and just learn the game, learn the landscape, focus on our business, which is boxing. And they won't, like I said to you before, they won't lace our boots. They're banging trouble. And look at the fighters coming out tonight with that sort of stuff. You know, it won't be long, they'll have the placards out outside the Apex.
Meanwhile, Dana continues to downplay the changes he hopes to make.
You replied to Maurizio Suleiman, Eddie Hearn's had his things to say. All these guys are obviously speaking out about you coming into the sport. What are they not understanding about your ambitions for boxing?
Well, here's the thing. They were very concerned about the Muhammad Ali Act and all these other things. None of that is going to change for them. Nothing's going to change. Muhammad Ali, we're not changing one word of that. It's going to be intact. I don't know why the now fighters are going to have more options. Why is that a bad thing? Why are more options a bad thing? It's not. I expected it anyway.
Just one last one for Dana, the last one I have on the Ali Act, or the Ali Renewal Act. Earlier today, advanced to a committee. So I guess how soon do you expect that to go through before the president kind of signs it into law?
Do I expect it to go through?
I guess how quickly?
Well, today was a great day for it. I don't know if you saw, but the vote was incredible.
Naturally, this left a bad taste in the mouth of fighters, considering the financing for the deal was ultimately built on their blood, sweat, and tears, something which Dana once again sought to eliminate.
Why is it a bad thing when guys make more money? You know what I mean? It's never a bad thing when guys make more money. It's always a good thing when there's more money in the sport. And since 2001, fighter pay has gone like this nonstop. Obviously, we just got, a great television rights deal. I promise you that fighter pay is going to be just fine over the next 7 years.
But this didn't exactly work out, with Michael Venom Page walking out to They Don't Care About Us by Michael Jackson at his recent UFC fight in protest of how fighters were being treated. With Dana and the UFC leadership continuing to stonewall the fighters, it's hard to see a solution where there are so many factors at play. In the view of former flyweight and bantamweight champion Henry Cejudo, it's part of the reason the UFC exploits people from smaller nations who are happy to have the payday.
Yeah, I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because a lot of these foreign fighters that have never been paid, that have fucking fought on the street for free, they're happy with the $100,000 bonus. They're happy with just getting famous. You know what I'm saying? For Americans, that we understand the game of how the associations have worked, it's different. There's a 51-49 pay in basketball, football, MLB, and these guys are making, if these dudes truly knew what they are making and what the UFC could potentially pay them, they think a little bit different. And the other thing that I will say is managers, would managers work together?
But ultimately, this creates a situation where athletes at the peak of the sport still had to find alternative ways to make money. For example, Cejudo recalled how some of the biggest names in the game had to compensate for the lack of a safety net that they're afforded between fights.
Like, Pantoja, he was a former champ. When he was fighting in the UFC, he was working Uber Eats. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not just him, there's a bunch of them.
He also acknowledged that in order to change things, fighters have to say no, while also being fully aware of the cost of speaking out.
Everybody's afraid and scared and doing their own thing, but it's like, whenever these fighters stop becoming and these managers can actually get together, is when these guys could actually start to formulate something to where all right, man, you guys made a lot of money now. Like let's distribute it a little bit better. And this right here, even this conversation right here, Kamaru.
Yes.
Like it's gonna cost me, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna cost my relationship with the UFC because I'm speaking the truth.
Why would a conversation like this cost you?
Because everybody's afraid, Kamaru, including yourself, dude. Nobody wants to go. Nobody wants to be enemies with the UFC. Like, who does? Like, who does, Kamaru?
To make matters worse, the fact that the UFC is the biggest game in town presents a real issue. Basically, they don't have a true autonomy when it comes to their career, with consequences for saying no to the organization's plans being revealed by longtime welterweight contender Colby Covington.
What are the politics behind the UFC? Like, I've heard you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't even pick the fights. And you just get a call and you just accept it.
Yeah.
So you have no say in what happens.
You have no say. You know, Hunter Campbell, who is like the UFC lawyer, he kind of just tells you what direction they're going to go, and it's either you take it or leave it. So you don't really get a choice what you want to do.
They just leave you.
They just leave you. They ice you. They won't give you fights. They'll just let you sit out there. They'll say, hey, you turn down this fight. Now you're not going to fight for the year. You're not going to make money. They'll freeze you out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're forced to take whatever they give you, even if it's not a good move for your career, whatever it is.
Yeah, even if it's not a good move and you don't think you're getting paid what you deserve, it doesn't matter. They say, hey, you either accept it, be a company man, or we'll just ice you and you don't get a fight to make money.
His testimony suggests that if you say no, then you could wind up sitting out, and that means your earning potential for the year is hugely limited, perhaps having a major impact on your life that they simply don't stop to consider. Consequently, this has forced many of them to seek alternate means of making cash that could potentially cause reputational damage to the industry as a whole, rather than just the UFC. You can make yourself $150,000, which is more money than you might make in your fucking career by taking a dive. A coach who has cornered several UFC champions told ESPN. That's where all of us coaches and within the organization or within the community go. Oh shit, where there's smoke there's fire. And through it all, the UFC keeps rolling as they always have, spending $60 million on their upcoming White House card without thinking twice. With the union looking like a distant prospect and the UFC's stranglehold over MMA only increasing, it's hard to imagine a world where the fighters win. But hopefully, with each new think piece and video like this that's published, public awareness can mount to the point that they really need to make changes. Because as it stands, the sport that is so beloved by people all over the world continues to grow at the expense of the athletes that keep us entertained. And that's a real shame.